Stop for a second and breathe, because this is not the message you casually click and forget a minute later. If you found these words today, there is a reason. Something inside you has been asking in silence, asking when the confusion will end, asking if the pull you feel is real, asking if the person on your mind truly carries love for you, or if your heart has only been holding on to a dream. Listen closely, because this matters. The ache in your chest, the sudden calm when you think of them, the way your spirit keeps returning to the same name even when your mind wants to move on, none of that came from nowhere. You did not arrive here by accident. You are here because a truth has been knocking softly inside you for days, maybe even for weeks, and now it is ready to be heard clearly. Stay with me, because what comes next may explain more than you expected. There are moments in life when the noise outside grows weaker and the real answer rises from somewhere deeper. This is one of those moments. What you are about to hear is not empty comfort. It is not random hope. It is a direct answer to the quiet question you have been carrying. Deep in your heart, before fear spoke, before doubt started making shadows, you already felt what was true. Today, that feeling meets words. Today, the hidden weight begins to lift. Today, you may finally understand why this connection has stayed alive inside you, even when everything around it seemed uncertain. You have felt it, haven't you? That strange link that refuses to behave like an ordinary attraction, that magnetic pull that logic cannot fully explain. At times you told yourself it was just wishful thinking. At times you tried to label it as loneliness, imagination, or a passing emotional storm. But every time you tried to reduce it, it returned with even more force. The way your body reacts when this person crosses your mind. The wave that moves through you when their energy feels close. The quiet shock of feeling like you know them beyond time, beyond words, beyond the normal steps people take to become close. That is why this has been so hard to ignore, and that is why your doubts have felt so exhausting. Part of you knows this bond is real, while another part has been trying to protect you from what that truth could mean. Keep listening, because this is where things begin to shift. The feeling you carry is not just a fantasy built from empty need. It is not simply your heart reaching for something unavailable. There are signs, steady and deep signs, that point toward a real emotional truth, even if this person's actions have looked mixed, silent, or distant. You may have mistaken the distance for absence of love. You may have thought the silence meant the feeling died, but silence does not always mean emptiness. Sometimes silence means the feeling is too strong to speak. Sometimes distance appears because the heart is overwhelmed, not because it is cold. Do not click away yet, because one of the biggest mistakes people make is judging a deep bond only by surface behavior, while missing the unseen force moving beneath it. Maybe recently you have felt a heaviness you could not name, a weight in your chest, a restlessness late at night, a strange sadness when nothing obvious has happened. Or maybe the person you care about has become quieter, harder to read, less available, less direct, and you have been asking yourself if that change means love is fading. But hear this clearly. What feels confusing is not always a sign that the bond is false. Sometimes confusion rises when something real touches the places in you that were never fully healed. Real love does not always arrive in a neat form. It does not always come with instant clarity, easy timing, or perfect words. Sometimes it enters like a light into a room that has been closed for years, and the first thing you notice is the dust rising. That dust is not the light. It is what the light revealed. That is what may be happening now. This connection may be stirring your old pain, not because it came to hurt you, but because it came close enough to awaken what was buried. Stay here, because this next part is important. When someone carries real feeling for you, especially a feeling that reaches deep into the soul, your inner defenses often wake up before your trust does. The heart recognizes, the mind resists. The soul leans forward, the ego steps back, and suddenly you are caught in that painful space between knowing and fearing, between longing and guarding, between wanting to believe and being terrified to be wrong. This is why you have asked yourself the same question again and again in the dark. Is this love real? Do they feel it too? Am I seeing something true? Or am I losing myself in a story my heart created? If that has been your private struggle, then listen very carefully. The repeating pull you feel is not always weakness. It is not always emotional dependence. It is not simply pride refusing to let go. Sometimes it is the sign of a bond that is still alive beneath confusion. You may try to turn away. You may decide that enough is enough. You may tell yourself you are done, that you will stop thinking, stop hoping, stop checking for signs. And for a moment, you may even believe it. Then something small happens. A memory returns. A dream appears. A calm drops into your chest. A song reaches you at the exact right second. Their energy fills the room without warning. And once again, you feel that invisible hand pulling you back toward the same truth. Do not ignore that pattern too quickly. The details matter. The glance that lasted a moment too long. The message that looked simple but carried hidden warmth. The way your entire inner state changes when they come near, or even when their name passes through your thoughts. Love that is deep does not always speak loudly in the beginning. Sometimes it hides in pauses, in restraint, in awkward actions, in half-finished words, in a softness someone tries and fails to conceal. Watch closely. The heart often reveals itself before the mouth ever does. There is something else you need to understand, and it may change the way you read this whole experience. This person may not be confused about their feelings as much as you think. In many cases, the deeper confusion has been inside you, not because you are weak, not because your heart is foolish, but because this connection entered your life while you were still learning how to stand steady in your own worth. When love arrives with real force, it does not just make you feel wanted. It shakes what is unstable. It exposes what is unresolved. It asks you to see where fear still lives in you. That can feel like chaos. It can feel like danger. It can feel like you are losing control. But often you are not losing yourself. You are being asked to meet yourself more honestly than before. Stay with this, because it explains so much. The fear you feel is not always proof that love is missing. Sometimes it is proof that something powerful has entered your life. A person who truly feels for you may look at you with a kindness they cannot quite hide. They may carry respect around you without trying. Their softness may show up in little ways that seem too small to measure, yet too real to dismiss. Even from a distance, there may be a gentleness in how they hold your presence. And if you have recently feared that they are gone for good, listen now. Not every pause is an ending. Not every retreat means the feeling has died. Some connections pass through silence because both people are being changed by what they feel. That is why this experience can feel so intense. Real love does not come only to comfort. It comes to transform. It removes old illusions. It breaks familiar patterns. It teaches patience where you once rushed, trust where you once demanded proof, and faith where you once depended on control. If everything inside you feels stirred, that does not automatically mean something is wrong. It may mean something old is falling away so that something more true can rise. And this leads to the great inner battle you have been living through without always having words for it. The battle between fear and intuition. One voice is loud, urgent, and restless. It wants answers now. It checks the phone. It reads too much into delay. It tells you that if they were real, they would already have spoken exactly the way you wanted. It says that silence is rejection, distance is loss, and uncertainty is failure. That voice leaves you tired. It empties you. It traps you in loops. But there is another voice, quieter and steadier. It does not scream. It does not chase. It rests in the chest like a small flame that does not go out. Even when doubt rises, this softer voice tells you that something meaningful is still unfolding. It gives peace in the middle of confusion. It is not fantasy. It is inner knowing. And yes, you need discernment, because not every feeling is truth. But when calm remains beneath the storm, when some deep part of you keeps recognizing the connection without panic, that steady peace can be one of the clearest signs that what you feel is not invented by fear, but touched by something real. Look back at your emotional history and be honest with yourself. If you were betrayed before, abandoned before, ignored before, or taught to expect pain where love should have been, then of course your mind would struggle now. Of course it would question what is good. Of course it would try to protect you by turning every silence into danger. Often you are not truly doubting the other person's feelings. You are doubting your own ability to hold a love this deep without being broken by it. That is the deeper wound, and that is why this connection may feel like both a gift and a test. It is not only here to bring affection into your life, it is here to push you past old limits. It is here to ask whether you will keep living from fear or finally choose a higher standard for what you receive and what you believe you deserve. Every time fear rises, you are being given a choice. You can feed it with panic, overthinking and chasing, or you can pause, breathe, and recognize that an old pain is asking to be healed. This is where your power begins. Not in forcing a result, not in making someone return faster, but in refusing to let fear run your spirit. The bond you feel may act like a strong light. It reveals insecurity, yes, but it also gives you the chance to clear it. And that is why no matter how many times you try to shut the door completely, something inside you keeps returning. Not because you are meant to suffer, but because this experience is trying to bring you back to your own center before anything else. Now we have to speak about the silence from the other side, because this is where many hearts get lost. If the bond feels so strong, why does the other person seem distant? Why do they go quiet? Why do they step back when the connection feels most alive? The answer may be simpler and deeper than you think. Sometimes the one who feels just as much is the one most frightened by what they feel. Your presence may touch parts of them no one else has reached. It may awaken love, yes, but also old fear, old shame, old memories of not being enough, of losing control, of being hurt when they opened too far. When that happens, distance can become a shield. Not because they do not care, but because they care more deeply than they know how to handle. This is the pattern many people live without naming. One person feels the pull and wants to move closer. The other feels the same pull and becomes overwhelmed. One reaches. The other retreats. One fears losing the bond. The other fears being consumed by it. If this has been your story, then hear this carefully. The retreat is not always rejection. It can be self-protection in the face of emotion that feels too large. And if you keep pushing while they are overwhelmed, the cycle often gets worse. The more pressure they feel, the more distance they create. The more distance they create, the more your fear rises. This is why so many deep connections become trapped in a painful rhythm. But stay with me, because there is a way to break that rhythm, and it does not begin with more chasing. It begins with a return to your own balance. The hardest lesson in a bond like this is the lesson of release without indifference. Not giving up, not pretending you never cared, but letting go of the need to force timing, force words, force proof, force movement. That is difficult, especially when your heart wants clarity now. Yet this is often the very point where change begins. When you stop reaching from fear, the whole energy shifts. When you choose your own healing, your own peace, your own light, you remove the pressure that was feeding the distance. Listen closely, because this is a retention moment you do not want to miss. The one who steps back can often feel when your energy changes. When you are no longer pulling at them from pain, something becomes softer. The space becomes safer. The fear around the bond begins to loosen. And slowly, sometimes very slowly, an inner pull starts guiding them back. This pause between you may not be punishment at all. It may be preparation, a space where each of you is being invited to become whole enough to meet without attachment, without panic, without trying to use the other person to escape your own emptiness. Imagine that for a moment. A reunion not built on need, but on strength. Not built on fear of loss, but on clear choosing. Not built on confusion, but on inner steadiness. That is why your task right now is not to collapse into waiting. It is to grow. to clear what fear has tangled, to stand so firmly in yourself that if love returns, it finds you grounded, not scattered. And if you are still here listening, then part of you already knows this is the path forward. As you return to yourself, you begin to notice signs in a different way. Not desperate signs, not signs you chase with anxiety. Quiet confirmations, small but powerful reminders that the bond did not disappear just because words became scarce. Maybe you feel them suddenly and cannot explain why. Maybe their memory enters your mind with unusual force at the exact moment your heart is calm. Maybe certain songs, scents, places, colors, or passing details keep bringing them back into your awareness with a strange precision. The mind calls these things coincidence too quickly, but life often speaks in a softer language than direct answers. A meaningful bond can echo through patterns, timing, and inner sensation. The strongest proof is not always a message on a screen. Sometimes it is the way your soul continues to recognize them without effort. Sometimes it is the depth of effect you know you have on them. Think about this. Some people pass through a person's life without leaving much behind, but there are rare connections where a single glance, a short meeting, or one honest conversation changes the entire emotional landscape. If you are that person for them, then your presence may continue to move inside them long after the moment ends. They may act mixed because what they feel is intense. They may seem unsure because they are trying to manage the impact. But mixed behavior does not always mean mixed feeling. In deep connections, it often means strong feeling meeting weak readiness. And if you have sensed that their heart becomes unsettled around you, that they search for you without admitting it, that their silence feels full rather than empty, then there may be far more living in this bond than appearances suggest. Watch the small moments. They matter more than grand speeches people only imagine. Notice how their eyes behave when they think you are not looking. Notice whether their attention returns to you even in a busy room. Notice if their energy changes around you, if their voice softens, if their body becomes more careful, more alert, more present. Sometimes the deepest affection appears in restraint, in the way someone remembers what you said, in the way they hesitate because the feeling is too close to the surface, in the way a silence between you does not feel awkward, but full. With most people, silence feels empty. With a real bond, silence can feel charged, almost like a quiet conversation happening underneath words. And then there are the inner signs: sudden warmth in the chest, a wave of emotion without visible cause, a dream so vivid it feels more real than the day, waking with their name already in your mind, opening your eyes at odd repeating times and feeling their presence before you even remember why. These things do not replace healthy reality, and they should not be used to escape common sense. But they are part of how deep emotional connection can move through the unseen layers of life. Sometimes the mind demands hard proof because it is afraid to trust. Yet truth does not always arrive as a contract. Sometimes it arrives as a repeating pattern of recognition that refuses to die. If this message is speaking directly to your experience, stay until the end, because the next truth may be the one your heart has needed most. The bond you feel is not asking you to become smaller, more desperate, or more lost. It is asking you to become clearer, stronger, and more aligned with what your spirit already knows. And here is the shift that changes everything. Stop treating your doubt as wisdom when it is really fear wearing a wise face. Doubt can be useful when it protects you from fantasy, but constant doubt can also become an energetic block that slows what is trying to unfold. Every time you surrender to panic, you send out the message that love is absent, that you are unsafe, that you do not trust life, yourself, or the bond. But every time you return to calm, every time you choose inner steadiness instead of emotional chasing, something opens. This does not mean sitting still and waiting for rescue. It means becoming available for healthy love by clearing the noise that keeps you from receiving it. If you feel chills hearing that, then listen even more carefully. A simple inner decision can change the whole field around this connection. You can say within yourself, I release control. I trust what is true to reveal itself in the right way. I stop forcing. I stop feeding fear. I welcome clarity, whether it comes through return, through truth, or through my own growth. That kind of decision is powerful because it ends the war inside you. It gives your heart room to breathe. It tells life that you are ready for what is real, not just what temporarily eases your anxiety. And from that place, your energy becomes cleaner. You no longer reach from lack. You no longer beg the universe for crumbs. You begin to stand in the understanding that real love does not need you to shrink, chase, or abandon yourself to prove devotion. Real love meets strength. Real love deepens in truth. Real love can survive silence when the foundation is deeper than surface noise. This season you are in now may be one of preparation more than possession. That does not make it less meaningful. In fact, it may make it more sacred. A love with real depth does not come just to decorate your life for a few emotional moments. It comes to reshape your awareness. It comes to teach you what steady love feels like, what self-respect looks like, and what it means to stay open without abandoning your center. The space between you may be refining both of you. You are learning to stop expecting another person to complete what only your own healing can complete. You are learning to become whole in yourself. Not cold, not closed, but whole. And while you are doing that, they may be facing their own shadows too. Their own fear of closeness, their own patterns of retreat, their own old promises never to love in a way that could undo them. This is why appearances can be so misleading. What looks like distance may be a private storm. What looks like silence may be deep inner work. What looks like absence may be an emotional struggle they do not yet know how to speak. If this connection is meant to grow into something lasting, then both of you must become able to hold it. That takes time. That takes healing. That takes courage. And yes, it can be painful while you are inside it. But pain is not always the final meaning of an experience. Sometimes it is only the pressure of transformation. Do not call the whole story too early. Do not decide the ending while the middle is still moving. Some bonds are built slowly in invisible places before they ever become clear in the visible world. So, what do you do now? You do not close your heart in bitterness, and you do not throw your peace away chasing reassurance. You become quiet enough to hear what is true. You pay attention to what the bond is teaching you. You let the fear come up without obeying it. You choose your life, your healing, your value, your self-respect. You keep your spirit clean from desperation. You let love become something that meets you in wholeness, not something you use to escape loneliness. If this person is truly connected to you, then what is real will not be destroyed by a temporary season of distance. What is false will fall away. What is true will become clearer. That is the hidden mercy in all of this. Time reveals. Silence reveals. Growth reveals. And when the moment is right, what has been ripening in secret often becomes obvious all at once. One day you may look back on this confusing chapter and see that every restless night, every moment of doubt, every forced release, and every return to inner calm was preparing you for a love far steadier than the one you imagined in your fear. Maybe they return with honesty. Maybe the truth arrives in a way you can finally touch. Maybe the bond becomes grounded, mutual, and unmistakable. But before any of that, your first reunion must happen within yourself. That is where peace begins. That is where clarity begins. And that is where the undeniable sign has been waiting all along. Beneath the fear, beneath the noise, beneath the urge to control, there is still a quiet knowing in you that does not disappear. Trust that, protect that, build from that, and let what is real find you without resistance.